Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. We begin tonight with a story that is reverberating across the country, including here in the north. Will the federal government invest in new road infrastructure or not? 2 days ago, Environment Minister Steven Guilbeault said his government had decided to stop spending money on those kinds of projects. But today, in response to blowback from the premiers, he said he should have been more specific. We'll have reaction to this news from supporters of the NWT's proposed McKenzie Valley Highway in just a moment. But first, David Thurton explains what happened.
The home of a new proposed Ontario highway, but it's unclear if the federal government will help fund such projects. Guilbeault spoke at this event Monday where, according to a newspaper, he said, "Our government has made the decision to stop investing in new road infrastructure. There will be no more envelopes from the federal government to enlarge the road network." The blowback was quick and intense.
Anyone who thinks that you can stop building roads has obviously not traveled outside of Montreal very much.
The Conservatives piled on, calling it an extreme policy by an extreme environmental minister.
We need to invest. We need to build the things that Canadians need to live in the type of country we live in. I think of my own riding, which is 100 kilometers from Vancouver. You need to drive the car.
The minister faced some pointed questions today.
That's not what I said.
Yes, it is.
Wait.
I can read it back to you.
What I have said is that the solutions to our transport challenge pass by many different things, including massive investment in public transit.
Guilbeault said on Monday he was referring to the third link, a proposed multi-billion-dollar tunnel connecting communities to Quebec City. He says Ottawa will not invest in that.
You don't need Highway 4 and 3 in Quebec. You don't need the Troisième Lien. These kinds of projects aren't conducive to actually shifting the travel patterns that we need to see to reducing carbon emissions.
Although the minister attempted some damage control, his comments might intensify opposition to the federal government's other environmental policies. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
This back and forth from the federal government isn't sitting well with some folks in the Northwest Territories, including those who have been pushing for the McKenzie Valley Highway. It would connect communities in the Sawtoo region with the Territory's existing highway system. It remains unclear whether it would be seen as a large road project, but some are saying this all feels like a setback.
It'll be devastating for us, getting our fuel, our groceries in, and the only way we would have it flown in now if we don't have a resupply by, like I said, with our McKenzie River water levels being low, and if we don't get our highway, well, we just got to wait during the winter months for a resupply, so that's going to have a big effect on all the people in the Sawtoo.
Northwest Territories MP Michael McLeod said in an email that he will continue to support infrastructure projects in the north. Steven Guilbeault's press secretary tells CBC North the minister's comments were severely misconstrued. With the Arctic Winter Games less than 1 month away, it is crunch time for athletes needing passports so they can travel to Alaska. Dozens of youth across the north are anxiously trying to get their documents. And to help, Service Canada is holding an outreach event at its Iqaluit office. Starting today and running until Friday, Service Canada staff will collect missing documents for passport applications that have already been submitted, and they'll also accept new applications. The agency says it's continuing to work with officials to get passports for all Nunavut athletes ahead of the Games. In the NWT, though, at least one athlete has been told they are not going to the Games because they don't yet have a passport. Last week, the chef de mission for Team NT told CBC as many as 30 athletes were in danger of missing the Games because they didn't have the required travel documents. The deadline for NWT athletes to have a passport was Monday. Now, we have reached out to Sport North to see how many athletes won't be able to go, and we haven't heard back yet. The Transportation Safety Board of Canada is investigating a fatal helicopter crash in northern Alberta. The crash happened Monday afternoon, not far from Fort Chipewyan. A helicopter operated by Hanley Heli Service was doing aerial survey around Lake Athabasca. There was just one person on board, the pilot. The TSB says there was an abrupt change of weather which created low visibility. The helicopter hit the frozen surface of Lake Athabasca and the pilot did not survive. 2 TSB investigators were at the crash site today talking to people and documenting the scene. The next step will be recovering the helicopter. And we're expecting to learn more tomorrow about a different fatal helicopter crash. That is when the TSB will release its findings on the April 2021 crash near Resolute Bay, Nunavut. 3 people were killed in that incident. The Dene Nation wants a full, independent inquiry into the 2023 NWT wildfires, and it's calling on the commissioner of the NWT to support its demand. Dene National Chief Gerald Antoine says the evacuation of numerous communities last summer brought back memories of the forced removal of Indigenous people by former governments. He says there was no clear communication and people didn't have the resources they needed. Antoine also says the Emergency Management Act needs to be changed. He wants it to recognize the role First Nations chiefs and councillors have for ensuring the safety of their people. Antoine says a full inquiry into the wildfires is necessary to make sure the territory is better prepared if it happens again. But NWT Premier R.J. Simpson says he does not think the territory needs a public inquiry. He explains why.
Well, our Public Inquiries Act is very old and very outdated. It doesn't have a lot of the provisions that modern acts would have. The ability to do interviews that aren't in public, that are a little more anonymous, to look at reports that without making it a public process. So there's a lot of work that can be done in the background under the new acts. But with our current act, which is decades old, anyone who was involved in the issue of the inquiry, so the evacuations, has the right to testify essentially, and call witnesses and examine witnesses. So we could have a situation where we have tens of thousands of people able to testify and call witnesses, and it could turn into a circus very quickly. It's not focused. Once we create this body, it takes on a life of its own. We don't have an ability to cap costs. We don't have an ability to set a timeline. So if we want to look into the wildfires and the wildfire response, we could be looking at an inquiry worth tens of millions of dollars. It would require hundreds or thousands of people to testify. So the act itself is not well suited to a review of this magnitude. So that's the biggest issue, and that's my biggest concern.
Simpson says there are ways to ensure the territorial government will be held accountable during the review process. For example, he says they can create an oversight committee made up of people appointed by MLAs both in and out of cabinet. MLAs are expected to debate this issue in the NWT legislature later this month. One Nunavut lawyer and activist is praising the Supreme Court of Canada's ruling on the Federal Indigenous Child Welfare Act. Last week, the country's highest court unanimously upheld the law that gives Indigenous groups autonomy over child and family services. The province of Quebec had appealed the law, stating it was unconstitutional. Ayu Peter says it's a step forward for future generations of Indigenous people.
I think this ruling is very much in line with how we proceed forward so that Inuit, Métis, and Indigenous peoples in Canada can start taking autonomy and not have the federal or other governments meddle in with how we should raise our children going forward.
Peter says she believes the Inuit way of parenting should be recognized at the federal level. Yukon's population may be booming, but it's also aging, and that puts additional strain on a healthcare system that's already under pressure. A renowned dementia doctor is in Whitehorse this week, and she believes she has a solution that will ease pressure and improve care. Rafsan Farouk Jugal explains.
2, 3, that's a cue. It's simply they'll observe what you're doing. You give a good number of repetitions. they might do it with you for.
The number of Canadians living with dementia is continuing to rise, and so is the Yukon's aging population. Those numbers are at odds with the territory's medical capacity, according to this care of the elderly physician who recently moved back to Whitehorse.
And yes, we do have younger adults and younger families up here, but we actually have an aging population. So all the seniors that used to retire outside when they got to be 65, those seniors are now staying. Adult children that live up here, they're bringing their parents up here.
According to Dr. Miller, only 19% of the Yukon's doctors are comfortable managing dementia. Over the next decade, the number of elders over the age of 65 are set to double. She's invited one of Canada's leading specialists to Whitehorse to teach a series of workshops, and ultimately, she wants to see dementia clinics in this territory. Dr. Linda Lee is the founder of the Mint Memory Clinic model, a new senior care strategy that she says provides wraparound support.
It is a model that is really designed where especially for a place like the Yukon where there's just very limited geriatric specialist availability. So where communities that aren't well supported with geriatric specialists, a model such as the Mint Clinic enables the existing healthcare practitioners, the primary care clinicians and teams to have the skills and the ability to make that diagnosis and also to manage with best quality or best practices.
There are currently 100 Mint clinics in Canada. Ralph Sanfarg-Jugal, CBC News, Whitehorse.
For the second time in less than 2 weeks, a powerful snowstorm is hitting Atlantic Canada. Parts of Nova Scotia got hit with more than 30 centimeters of snow last night, and now the storm is headed to Newfoundland, where they're expecting up to double that in some areas. Shayna Luck has the story.
It's the last thing Cape Bretoners needed, an overnight snowstorm blowing in huge drifts of snow, with clearing still not done from the last huge blizzard. Crews struggled just to keep the major roads clear.
I've been doing this for 16 years, mostly in a highway patrol role. I've worked all through the mountains of BC on some of the craziest highways anywhere, and this tops them all.
A team of ex-military volunteers who came to shovel out people stuck in their homes had to rescue themselves first.
Our equipment is sometimes not working because especially when we had the warm weather, it now became ice. So really we became ice shovelers and not snow shovelers.
In Halifax, roughly 30 centimeters of fresh snow caused some excitement and some weariness.
Are you tired of the snow yet?
Yeah, I am.
It was bad, like everything is unplowed, but yeah, I guess it is what it is.
They said it was going to be 10 to 15, but I think we got a bit more. So it's going to be a long morning.
The storm is also moving slowly through eastern and northeastern Newfoundland, where it could linger until early Friday. For some, that'll mean lots of rounds of shoveling.
That's why I'm doing the first cut, because, 60 centimeters is almost my height.
Meanwhile, back in Sydney, the new snow is coming on top of buildings that were already strained from the last major storm. At this restaurant, some employees were inside a few days ago when the roof started to give way.
And that's when she looked up and saw the big crack, and I was like, get out of the bar.
It's a tough blow for a small local business.
If you want to put that into terms of numbers, we're probably hitting close to $40,000 in lost revenue.
A costly cleanup that will last for days to come. Shayna Luck, CBC News, Halifax.
Drivers with companies like DoorDash, Uber, and Lyft are on strike today. They're off the job in Canada, the US, and the UK. They want better wages and better worker protections. Anis Haidari has that story.
Many of the people who drive you around or deliver your food in cars or on bikes say they aren't happy with how much they get paid these days.
You do the math without tips and they're paying you $9, $10, $8 an hour. It's hard work. You're outside in the cold, in all kinds of weather, and they should respect that. I think the company should respect that.
Less pay and more mileage. We have to drive a lot for this one. Like we have to spend 2 hours for one delivery, or like traffic in Toronto. So like 2 hours, I'm driving for 3 or 4 $4.
In many North American cities, drivers protested over concerns like not getting paid when they aren't actively driving. But this economist points out wages aren't as simple as with other jobs.
Uber drivers, they have to pay for their car, they have to pay for their insurance. So perhaps the way in which we use to come up with the minimum wage isn't actually the same formula that we should be using to come up with a minimum wage for these workers. Now, what that formula is, I don't think we have an answer to that yet.
Uber said it believes most of its drivers are satisfied and that it doesn't expect these protests to affect prices or availability. The company's stock price hit a record high today, with increasing returns to shareholders. Also going up, the number of Canadians working for ride-hailing apps. Statistics Canada said 135,000 people did that last year, an increase of more than 48%. Dozens of those people may have been protesting today. As for their wages, no indication they'll be going up yet. Anis Haidari, CBC News, Calgary.
NATO defense ministers gathered in Brussels to talk about the next phase of military support for Ukraine. During that summit, Canada announced $60 million in aid for Ukraine. It comes after Donald Trump suggested member countries who don't pay enough for defense should not get NATO protection. Briar Stewart has more from London.
This is the Cesar Kunikov, a Russian landing ship capable of carrying hundreds of troops and armored vehicles. A ship Ukraine says it destroyed overnight in a drone attack. The Kremlin would not comment on those claims, but it appears to be the latest strike on Russia's Black Sea Fleet, one area where Ukraine is having some success. As NATO ministers meet to talk about how to better support its military and the alliance.
This year, I expect 18 allies to spend 2% of their GDP on defense. That is another record number.
The renewed talk of spending was in part a response to this. On the weekend, Donald Trump suggested that NATO members who don't spend enough of their GDP on defense should fend for themselves, adding he would even encourage Russia to attack them.
You don't pay your bills, you get no protection. It's very simple.
Canada is near the bottom of the list when it comes to meeting NATO's spending targets. It invested less than 1.4% of its GDP in defense last year. But in Brussels, Defense Minister Bill Blair announced another $60 million to train Ukrainian pilots to fly F-16 fighter jets.
I think we need to judge our allies, and particularly for Canada, the United States, on its long history and track record of being there for global peace.
Defense experts say what the war in Ukraine has shown is that NATO countries need to step up their military production.
To fill in the holes in the road, the many weaknesses of readiness, such as stockpiles and ammunition and spare parts that the Ukraine war has shown up.
Ukraine says it's so short of ammunition it has started rationing. A multi-billion-dollar aid package which would supply more has passed through the U.S. Senate, but it's still hung up in the Republican-controlled House. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
When my grandfather, Charlie Chaplin, first arrived in Hollywood, it was a place of dreams. But my grandfather clashed with some very powerful forces in America.
Are you a member of the Communist Party?
Stand away from the stand! I'm Una Chaplin. This is Hollywood Exiles. It's about a war of ideas that tore apart friendships, ended careers, and affected families like mine.
Hollywood Exiles, available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
The Invalton contest is open. You can read, speak, sing, or do a skit in the dialect of your choice. And you can even use filters like this one. Una nutchuk. Buvraganeaktuk. This is a seal. It's going to swim.
It's Valentine's Day today. For some, it's a day to celebrate love. For others, it's purely commercial. We hit the streets of Yellowknife to see what people in the NWT capital think.
Well, I think it's a beautiful day. I think it's a day that's has been there and people love it, and it's there just to celebrate love, right? So it's a beautiful day. I like Valentines. I look forward to it every year.
Yeah, I'm gonna spend some time with my girlfriend, and we're gonna have a great time eating some food and enjoying Valentine's together.
My partner and I just made a really nice dinner together. Roasted a chicken, had mashed potatoes, and then some wine.
Pretty excited. I always enjoy it every year. We've been together for a lot of years now, so we've gone through it a lot of times, but it's still exciting every time.
The first thing that I did in the morning was to give my wife a card and a present, and then in the evening I'll take her out for dinner, and then I think that's about it. We'll see if she has got any surprise for me, but yeah, well, my surprise for her is the dinner tonight.
Today we're going to NW for Valentine's dinner. Grandkids and kids are the most important thing in the world, so take them out and enjoy a day. It's for me, it's every day, but I want to take her out. So
We're going to the Aurora Village
tonight.
And what are you going to do there?
Watch the Northern Lights. We saw them for the first time yesterday evening, and it was spectacular. So definitely bucket list thing. Yeah, no worries. Definitely a bucket list thing that we ticked off. So yeah, it's very amazing.
Very exciting.
Me and my daughter, we put stuff together. We're making a little cake for me, and I share my stuff. I'm homeless. I have a good home now. Things I cook, I share it out to the people on the streets.
Kiss.
Kiss?
They say absence makes the heart grow fonder, and it also served as inspiration for traditional Dene love songs. Historically, these songs are created in the moment. The lyrics are spontaneous and depend on what someone feels at the time, whether it be love, loneliness, or thoughts of one special person. In 2007, elders in Betchacon shared love songs they heard in their youth. Snooky Catholic brings us that story from our archives.
They sing these songs because they feel joy within themselves.
Love songs like this one were common in the days before the telephone was introduced to the Dene. It was their form of expression, an emotional release, especially during the early stages of love, longing, and happiness for that special person who was far away. Charlie Nayeli is a spiritual advisor who works at promoting healthy lifestyle. He recalls the days as a youngster listening to these songs.
They sing the song of something that you're very close with and something that you're very connected to the land, or travel a campfire, or for the girl that you love and the girls that love the men, and some of the most beautiful feeling. And when those things come up and they used to sing that.
Charlie remembers the days when young men from his camp would sit on a hill singing these songs while thinking about a girl they were smitten with, a girl who was probably miles away at another camp, unaware.
It depends on how the people feel within themselves. If they feel broken-hearted, will they sing that song? But sometimes they feel overwhelmed with joy or thrill or whatever they feel, and they sing that song.
The love songs disappeared with the introduction of modern music.
Today in the modern world, there's a Hank Williams and there's George Jones and different ways of singing. Well, Denny Wade is like that too. I got a heart pain in my heart for longing for you. You're gone for so long. My heart is pain and with aching, and then it's not that kind of pain I was singing about. That kind of pain I was heartache and heartbroken. That's the kind of song I was singing, he said.
These songs were lost until an old recording was recovered. Now these songs are being sung again. Charlie says the timing is still critical.
The young people nowadays, they never heard those before. But the elders, they still feel that the love song. And then when they're gone, and then it's gone with them. We should start bringing back the love song. This is part of the pure joy for everybody.
I love you. Snooki Catholic, CBC News, Echoco.
Love songs don't always mean that love is forever, though. If you're haunted by an ex today, you may be interested in this program offered by a pet adoption center in New Jersey. It's called Neuter Your Ex. For a $50 donation, the center will name a feral cat after your former flame, and then the animal will get spayed or neutered. If, though, you are hoping to fully humiliate your ex, there is some disappointing news. The center will not give the cats last names. And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
Hey, you're some friends, aren't you? Stand here and now you try and blackmail her. You disgust me. Every one of you.
Coronation Street. Watch free on CBC Gem.
We've won the costume contest every year.
Bunny! Oh, you're squishing me. What have we done?
Whoa, what is this?
Crazy things have been happening.
Ghosting.
Ghosting. Watch free on CBC Gem.
You can be this happy too with endless TV shows, movies, and more.